Good morning. Excuse my early introduction earlier. I saw a flame being lit and thought we were starting.
Let's wait until we do this song together. Let's wait until we do the song together. I'm gonna bring do a song.
If you'd like to rise and sing along with us.
We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open mind. This is the church of the helping hands. This is the church of the loving heart. Together we care for the church and each other. Good morning. My name is Doug. It is my pleasure to welcome you to St. John's Unitarian Universalist Church. St. John's is proud to be a welcoming congregation, and as such, we honor and value the racial, economic, sexual orientation, gender diversity, physical abilities, and all the other things that we don't normally think about sometimes to our members and visitors. Know that wherever you are in your journey and however you're feeling, you are welcome here, and we're happy to choose to be with us today. A special welcome to visitors this morning. I invite you to stop by the welcome table in our lobby and to join us for refreshments and conversation in our fellowship hall after the service. There are many great things happening at St. John's. Please take a look at the announcements in your order of service. You also may want to check out the bulletin boards in our fellowship hall. As a reminder, please turn off or silence your cell phones, and again, welcome to all this morning.
Please rise and body your spirit, and we'll sing number 173, In the Branches of the Forest.
Thank you.
Please read along with me for the affirmation. This is the mission of our faith, to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands. And if Nicole could come up to talk about the split the plate.
Good morning. I'm Ashley Cooperthwaite from the Outreach Committee. And the Split the Plate this month is the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. And you can't hear me? Sorry. I would rather not. I'm pretty coffee this morning from allergies. I'm Ashley Cooperthwaite from the Outreach Committee. The Split the Plate from this month is the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. And Nicole is going to come up and talk a little bit more about that and her experience with this organization.
Good morning. As she said, my name is Nicole Stanforth, and I'm here to tell you about the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. For those of you who have listened to me tell you about this for the last 9 years, I appreciate your patience as I wax eloquent yet again. So St. John's has supported the AFSP through the Out of the Darkness Walk, and since said walk is coming up in just 2 weeks from today, I'll of course be talking about that as well. Now, I have a confession to make. Other than the walk, I have not in any way been involved with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I have never gone to a support group or a chapter meeting, nor have I gone to any of the events for the International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day, which this year is Saturday, November 18th. So why do I support the AFSP if I haven't taken advantage of all they have to offer? To be honest, I've never lost anyone to suicide, but I'm affected by it, and so are you. Statistically speaking, 1 in 10 people have seriously considered ending their lives. If you're Native American, Black, or Hispanic, the rate is even higher. The first year that I went to the Out of the Darkness Walk, it was 2013. Many of you know that I have struggled with depression since a young age and have survived suicide attempts. The first year, it was a whim. I don't even remember how I heard about the walk. At the time, the walk was around dinner time, so I got there early and watched as many people gathered. And more people. And more. This was... You're ahead of me. Or, no, sorry. Totally forgot about this slide. Here's your 10% of adult Americans have thought about suicide. Next slide, please, Roberto. I'm sorry. Oh. So, up there on the left, more and more people. It's hard to see, I know, but that was about an hour still before the walk, and that was the crowd. And I apologize, the pictures aren't the best quality, but it's what I have. Now, it was a very supportive environment. There were free pizza and conies, tables upon tables of support group and resources, a table to make a luminary in honor of a loved one. Whole teams of people would show support for one person, similar to the ALS walk happening as we speak. Groups with team t-shirts saying things like, "She flies while I walk." And then I saw one that truly hits home. It said, "It's not the statistics that make suicide real. It's when you love one of the numbers." It's not the statistics that make suicide real. It's when you love one of the numbers. That year, I walked alone in the middle of that crowd. As the route wound around Sawyer Point and the river, I enjoyed the exercise, the groups of musicians, people lined up to give hugs and signs of support all along the route. And then came the last part of the walk, where the route was funneled along the unused railroad tracks by Yeatman's Cove, and the upbeat crowd slowly grew quiet and solemn. Both sides of the route were lined with luminaries, each one lovingly decorated by hand. And they went on and on and on. As we made the final turn back to the bandstand, the grieving was honored with the sound of bagpipes. Some people left, but more stayed behind because there was more to come. There was a balloon release with so many balloons that it looked like snow falling up. And once again, I was impressed by the sheer number of people affected by suicide. And those are the ones that could just come to the walk. There were musicians and speakers. And one of the speakers said, "Suicide is a disease, not a choice." It was at that moment that I knew, as someone who has suffered for years, that this group was real. It was grief, it was support, and it was action. A suicidal person is in so much pain that they see no other way than to make it stop. And that's what the AFSP is trying to do. They take their grief and turn it into action to make a real difference. Growing up, I never really heard about people in my community dying by suicide. I'm sure it happened, but it wasn't publicly announced, so no one really knew the scope of the problem. But you can't change something you don't know about. So the AFSP has become the largest private funder of suicide prevention research in the United States and globally, offering over $8 million in research grants into 2022. These grants focus on research related to diversity, such as that related to underrepresented communities, evaluating what actually works to expand access and overcome barriers for suicide prevention, and how suicide loss affects survivors and the ways to help them. Then they actually use the research to educate the public by taking the information into the community, schools, and churches, including here at St. John's in 2016. But I'm getting ahead of myself. When I walked alone in 2013, I was still somewhat new to our church here at St. John's, and I wanted to wait to see who the new settled minister was before I was make any decisions about signing the book. Knowing that she had worked with mentally ill people in the past, I had a meeting with Mitra and asked if she would walk with me on the 2014 Out of the Darkness walk. She said that not only would she walk, but that St. John's would have a team. When I told her that there was no way I could lead such a team, she called on John Kachuba, who stepped up to the plate to be the first team leader for the team St. John's Cares. And St. John's showed up. I was not organized enough to get a team picture, but there are some familiar faces. If I recall correctly, there were about 20 to 25 of us who walked that year. While the number of actual walk participants has fluctuated throughout the years, again and again, St. John's has showed up. As the years went by, they moved the luminaries and more emotional experiences to be part of the International Survivors of Suicide Day events, and they moved the time up to the afternoon so participants weren't so tired and emotionally drained for work the next day. In 2017, I became friends with a member of Heritage UU, and our team name changed to Side with Love so that we could include other area churches. But of course, St. John's is still the heart of the team. So, as weird as it is to say, even in 2020, St. John's stepped up by supporting me the virtual overnight walk. Now, I skipped ahead, that's not why it's weird. You may have wondered why the name is Out of the Darkness. Here in Cincinnati, we participate in the community walk, which is usually somewhere between a mile to 5K on a Sunday afternoon. However, once a year, thousands of people gather to walk over 16 miles from dusk to dawn to raise funds and awareness for suicide prevention. These walkers commit to raising a minimum of $1,000. The location changes every year, and it's on my bucket list to attend one at least at some point in the future. And here's where it's weird to say that 2020 gave me hope that could happen. Because St. John's and other friends were quick to help me reach and exceed my $1,000 commitment to the overnight virtual walk. I even got the t-shirt. Now, 2021, we showed back up in person. Last year, there was a congregational meeting after church, so not everybody could make it, but we did have a small but mighty team. And your fundraising definitely supported us there in spirit. Your support helped make the change from the 1-800-SUICIDE to a much easier to remember 988 suicide hotline. Your money today will help the AFSP advocate on local and federal levels to provide access to care and mental health services and fight discriminatory policies. Your funds can provide desperately needed healing to survivors of suicide. If you would like to be a part of this year's 2023 Side with Love team, you can sign up today. The walk, as I said, is 2 weeks from today, rain or shine, down at Sawyer Point. It starts at 2 o'clock, but I recommend coming kind of straight from church with maybe a stop for lunch, if that, because you want to get there early to peruse the booths, and usually there's free La Rosas and Skyline and Coney's, but you got to get there quick. And it's free. You do not have to donate to attend. Not a problem. If you have one, please wear your yellow Side with Love shirt so that we can all stay together. But if you can't make the walk, that's fine. You can register as a virtual walker. Now, I have another commitment in 30 minutes. So over on the east side. So I won't be able to help you sign up today, but once again, St. John's has stepped up, and Bridget Shue will be out in the out there outside the sanctuary with a laptop to help you register after service. So 10 years ago, I walked alone. This year, I will not. Unitarian Universalism is a faith of interdependency. I know that I can depend on you to support not just me, but the Native Americans, Blacks, first responders, and all survivors of loss. People lost to suicide fell through the strands of the interdependent web of life. But you can be a part of preventing more loss. Every suicide is one too many. For today's offering, you can designate your entire contribution to the AFSP by noting its name and 100% in the memo line of a check, or with cash in a marked envelope. If you give to the Split the Plate via Vanco, our office administrator will split it 50-50 between the church and the AFSP. And because we all must question, how can anyone fail to notice how deeply you're connected to my soul? Please rise in body or spirit for hymn 1053, How Could Anyone?
Thank you, Nicole. This is the point during our service where if you have a joy or concern, you're invited to come forward and put a stone in the bowl of sand. If you would like your joy or concern read from the pulpit, leave a message on the table, or if you are online, put your note in the chat and I'll get it and read it for you.
If Ashley would like to come up for the story for all ages, and anybody young and young at heart can join her.
Good morning. So, yes, my name is Ashley Rhodes, and I'm in charge of the children's programming here. And today I have a story that I've actually been thinking about for a little while, because it's about being brave, and so we've had some services in the last couple of months that were about being brave, but it's also related to our 7 principle. So, the story is called Who Loves the Dark? Do you guys love the dark? No. It's pretty normal to not necessarily love the dark. So this, cool, I like that. Well, we'll talk. Let me see what you think about this story. There once was a child who got lost in the woods. As night began to descend, the child became more and more frightened. I'm sure any of us would be frightened too in that situation, but what made this child even more frightened was that they had always been afraid of the dark. He was more afraid of the dark than any of his friends or his siblings. He didn't know why he was more afraid. He only knew that when the sun went down, he was always very glad to be inside his brightly lit house. When the sun was all the way down and the only light was just a tiny bit of light from the moon and the stars, the child got so frightened that all he could do was sit down and cry, which he did. Can you imagine that? He's in the woods, crying. Soon he heard a voice that said, "What's all that racket?" He looked down and saw a mole squinting at him. Do you guys know what a mole is? Yeah. They live underground, don't they? "I'm lost in the woods," said the little boy. "It's dark and I'm afraid." "Well," said the mole, "perhaps you could take your noisy crying farther down the path. I hate having to come out of my warm, comfortable, dark hole to tell people to be quiet." Then the child heard another voice. "Go on back into your hole, Mr. Mole. I'll take care of this." The child looked up in the direction that this newer voice seemed to come from, and in the darkness he could see two glowing eyes looking down at him. There was a flutter of wings, and the creature flew down near him, and he could see that it was an owl, who said, "Please excuse Mr. Mole. He hates to come out of his nice dark hole for anything, to be honest." At this, the child burst out crying even harder, because as frightened as he was of the dark, having animals speak to him was a little bit beyond his experience, and a little frightening in itself. "No need for that crying," said the owl. "If you just give me your address, I can guide you home." Well, that made the child stop crying, partly out of relief that someone might be able to help him, and partly out of curiosity as to how an owl could locate his home with or without the address. But deciding he had little to lose, the child choked back his tears and replied that he would be very grateful to be guided home, and gave the owl his address. Do you have your address memorized? Yeah. What about somebody's phone number at least? Yeah. That's important for my kids too. So, this strange pair headed off through the dark forest in what the child hoped was truly the direction of his home. His fear left him just a little bit, and the child looked around, and though the moonlight was dim, he began to notice his surroundings. At one point, he noticed a kind of flower he had never seen before, and slowed his pace a little to look at it. "That," said the owl, "was an evening primrose. Did you know that there are some flowers that bloom only at night? There are moonflowers and night gladiolas too, flowers you would never see if you never went out at night. And of course, there are animals too who love night and the darkness. Me, for example, I love the dark. In the daytime, the light hurts my eyes. So that's when I go into my tree and I sleep." The boy replied, "Well, I like the daytime. I can see to kick a ball. I like the hot sun at the beach. The dark isn't scary, it's just boring." "Boring, you say?" replied the owl. And she clearly had some opinions on this point. But then there was a fluttering and squeaking around their heads. It took the child just a few seconds to figure out what it was, and he shrieked, "A bat!" And he started flailing his arms to knock the creature away, shrieking the whole time. Do you think that was probably a good idea? No, I wouldn't do that. The shape backed away and, hovering just out of reach, said, "Excuse me, that's just my way of saying hello." "Well, hello to you, Mr. Bat," said the owl. "This child was out here lost in the forest, and I'm helping him find his way home." "You're a bat," said the child, "a creature of darkness. Weren't you trying to drink our blood?" "No," said the bat, "but I've been eating lots of yummy insects who would have been biting you if I hadn't been around. Anyway, I couldn't help overhearing what you said about darkness being boring. If you want to come just a little bit out of your way, I can show you something really exciting." Owl agreed that Mr. Bat had a good idea, and the group went off the path and traveled through the deepest forest for what seemed like just a few minutes, and they came out onto a dark beach. "Here we are," said the bat. The child gazed out at the beach, lit very gently by just a little moonlight, and thought, "This is clearly beautiful, even in the dark, but I wouldn't call it exciting." Just then there was a movement in the sand, like a little bubble of sand rising up. Then there was another little bubble, and another. It looked almost as if the beach was boiling. Then out of those little bubbles of sand popped a rounded shape. What do you think it was? Any ideas? As they watched, more and more shadowy shapes came up out of the sand, and soon the child realized what he was seeing. Baby turtles. Hundreds climbing out of the sand. That was truly exciting. What do you think the turtles did? What do they do when they come out of the beach? Where do they go? They go down to the water. So all these turtles started crawling as fast as their legs could carry them toward the water. Now, turtles always do this at nighttime, said the owl, because to find the water, they need darkness everywhere else to follow the moon and starlight reflecting off the water. That's why at some beaches they have to be very careful about. Yes, sea turtles, exactly. So they can't do it during the daytime, and if we have people's lights, it'll mess them up. Oh, said the child. As they turned to leave and head back toward the child's home, Owl said, "You know who else loves the darkness? Besides all the nighttime plants and animals, the moon and the stars love the darkness. That's when they can really shine. Oh, they're there in the daytime as well, hidden behind a wall of light. But when that wall goes down with the sun, the stars and the moon reveal their beauty." After what seemed like a very short time, the child and owl left the forest and walked down a street that the child recognized as his own. He was very happy and relieved, but also a little sad to say goodbye to Owl, to whom he gave a very gentle hug and a thank you. He went into his home and, being extremely tired, got ready for bed right away. Before he went to bed, as a matter of habit, he bent down to turn on the nightlight that he always kept glowing through the night to keep the dark at bay. But before his fingers touched the switch of the nightlight, he smiled and pulled his hand away. He got into his bed, pulled up the covers, and let the comforting arms of the darkness soothe him to sleep. And that's the end of our story. Thank you for listening. And we're going to
I placed an additional stone in the sand to represent all the joys and concerns unexpressed. We had a birthday yesterday, our Barbara Haddon, 95 years old. Looks like from online. No joys and concerns. Sorry. It's kind of hard to navigate that sometimes. Please join me in this meditation by Thomas Rhodes, Meditation on Broken Hearts. Let us enter into a time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. Feel the earth beneath your feet as it supports you. Feel the love of this community as it surrounds and enfolds you. Feel your breath as it flows in and out of your body. Listen to your heartbeat. Listen to your heart. And how is it with your heart? Does your heart feel whole, shielded by intellect, cocooned by reason, closed to feeling? Or is it broken, fragile to the touch, brimming with the pain of loss? Or has your heart been broken and healed so many times that it now lies open to the world, knowing that true growth comes not without pain, that tears may wear down barriers, that we may carry the hearts of others even when our own is too heavy for us to bear. None of us has an unblemished heart, not one, for such perfection can be found only in death, and we who are alive still have much to heal. So let us give thanks for the broken places in our hearts and in our lives. For it is only through such brokenness that we may truly touch one another, and only through touching one another that the world may be healed. Let us give them thanks for the brokenness that we share. And now is time for our offertory. Please give as you are able, and thank you. Thank you, that was lovely. Join me in prayer. We return thanks to our mother, the earth, which sustains us. We return thanks to the rivers and streams which supply us with water. We return thanks to all herbs which furnish medicines for the cure of our diseases. We return thanks to the moon and stars which have given us their light when the sun was gone. We return thanks to the sun that has looked upon the earth with a beneficent eye. Lastly, we return thanks to the Great Spirit in whom is embodied all goodness and who directs all things for the good of her children.
Our reading today is The Nightingale and the Glowworm by William Cooper. A nightingale that all day long had cheered the village with his song, nor yet at eve his note suspended, nor yet when eventide was ended, began to feel, as well he might, the keen demands of appetite. When looking eagerly around, he spied far off upon the ground a something shining in the dark, and knew the glowworm by his spark. So stooping down from hawthorn top, he thought to put him in his crop. The worm, aware of his intent, harangued him thus, right eloquent. Did you admire my lamp, quoth he, as much as I your minstrelsy? You would abhor to do me wrong, as much as I to spoil your song. For 'twas the selfsame power divine taught you to sing and me to shine, that you with music, I with light, the songster heard that you with music, I with light, might beautify and cheer the night. The songster heard his short oration, and warbling out his approbation, released him, as my story tells, and found a supper somewhere else.
Good morning. There's a quote attributed to Chief Seattle of the Suquamish and Duwamish tribes along the Pacific coast that I think sets the foundation for the mindset and actions that we, as UUs, could embrace and use to improve not only our own lives, but to elevate the lives of others and the health of the whole universe. This is what he says. This we know, the earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. All things are connected like the blood that unites one family. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the children of the earth. We do not weave the web of life. We are only a strand of it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. Let me repeat that last line. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. Because we are a strand in that web. For those unfamiliar with UU principles, there are currently 7. The first 6 focus primarily on our relationship as a congregation and individual UUs with other people. The 7th and the last, which reads, respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part, is more inclusive of and focuses on the rest of creation. Reverend Forrest Gilmore, in his book, The 7 Principles in Word and Worship, explained that the interdependent web is expressed as the spirit of life, the ground of all being, the oneness of all existence, the community forming power, the process of life, the creative force, even God, that can help us develop that social understanding of ourselves that we and our culture so desperately need. It is a source of meaning to which we can dedicate our lives. As with all scripture, creeds, statements of faith, and covenants, the UU principles are subject to interpretation. Nothing unusual about that. You will perceive and define just about everything differently than I will, and how you talk about it will differ from how I talk about it. Let's look briefly at an example most of us will be familiar with. The God of the Old Testament, or the Hebrew Bible, gave Moses 10 commandments to pass on to the people. His 6th, which was do not kill, thou shalt not kill, seems pretty straightforward, yes? But if you attempt to apply it to actual daily life, you begin to see that it's open to wide interpretation. Does do not kill mean not to kill other people? Can you kill someone in self-defense? Can you have an abortion? What about animals? Can you hunt and kill them for fun, for sport? Can you kill them for food? I think most Christians have a general understanding that according to their values and society's expectations, it's not okay to kill other people. I also think that most understand that sometimes, in order to save a life, one might have to be sacrificed. But we've all heard the intense debates surrounding abortion and the even more concerted efforts to claim that hunting and killing animals is not only acceptable, but it's a human right. I'd like to invite you to revisit our seventh principle and your personal interpretation of it. A couple of months ago, I held an informal poll among friends on social media, and I asked them how they would define the word respect. The responses I got were varied. Something that is earned, treating others as I want to be treated, to feel equal to the other, to hold someone's autonomy as equal to my own, allowing another to just be and give them space, and finally, acknowledgement. The dictionary defines respects in a couple of different ways. First, consideration, or an act of giving particular attention. And the second, high or special regard, esteem. So, how do you define respect? And what does it mean to you as it applies to our seventh principle? How does understanding that you are an integral part of the interdependent web inform your day-to-day life? Or does it? What I've learned in talking with and listening to folks is that a great many simply acknowledge our place in the web. I've heard things like, oh yeah, sure, we're all a part of the universe. Or, yeah, I get it, we all depend on each other. Most people, I'm sorry to say, are a little flippant when talking about it. Like, they understand, but it really doesn't affect them directly. They talk big, but their actions simply don't reflect what they're saying. They say they understand how important insects like bees and butterflies are to our existence. At the same time, they are employing companies to spray their lawns with chemicals that will kill them, or rake and destroy their leaf cover in the fall. They acknowledge that what we do to others in the web affects us, and at the same time respond to any fear or intrusion with violence. It can be a tough thing to think about, and the habits we've adopted can be even more difficult to change or to even consider changing. Did you grow up learning that spiders or mice taking up residence in your home not only can be, but should be killed? Do you see a dandelion in your otherwise pristine yard and immediately run for the weed killer? I'll venture to say that most people do. But have you ever stopped to consider that they are but another strand in that web, and that harm done to them might result in further harm to the rest of us? How many of us live our lives as we truly know and understand that everything we do or say has an effect, directly or indirectly, on everyone and everything else? In Starhawk's book, The Earth Path, Grounding Your Spirit in the Rhythms of Nature, she states, because everything is independent, there are no simple, single causes and effects. Every action creates not just an equal and opposite reaction, but a web of reverberating consequences. You've heard of the butterfly effect, yes? Mathematician Edward Lorenz posed this question several decades ago. Does the flap of a butterfly's wing in Brazil set off a tornado in Texas? The butterfly effect is part of chaos theory. The Fractal Foundation explains that chaos is, and I love this, chaos is the science of surprises, of the nonlinear and the unpredictable. It teaches us to expect the unexpected. We don't know what effects our words or actions however innocent we think they are, might affect another. We don't know if something we do or say today will have an impact on a person, a single animal, a species, or an entire planet. But what we do know is that it could. And we know that collectively, our actions have had a detrimental effect on the climate, on the environment, and on the survival of countless species. And if we take a step back, stop and think before leaving our trash on the riverbank, or stepping on that ant in the kitchen, or dousing that wildflower in poison, we notice that our decisions affect individual living beings. That fish hook left in the water gets lodged in a mother goose's leg and gets infected, and her goslings are never hatched. The chemicals used to kill the weeds next to your patio accumulate, and they accumulate in your cat's system, and they die a year later from lymphoma. And those ants in your kitchen, they are highly social insects, and the loss of just one of them affects the entire colony. Kill a whole colony or many colonies, and you have wiped out the food source for a local predator. Although our seventh principle is often used to talk about our relationship with the environment and the animals in it, it can equally apply to our relationship with other humans. Our speech and our actions can both directly and indirectly affect the well-being of another. In fact, our own behavior and language can and often does have long-term reverberating effects on people, societies, and cultures far removed from us. So, how does understanding that you are an integral part of the interdependent web inform your day-to-day life? Or does it?
For announcements, I'd like to bring your attention to the flyer in the program. There is an error on a date in here. So at the very bottom in the small print, where it says RSVP for lunch by September 24th to Wanda, it should be September 20th to Wanda. So be sure to keep that in mind if you want to take part in the volunteer training that she will be leading. We also have, in the order of service, after today's service, Earth Spirit will be meeting at 12:30 in the chapel to discuss activities for the fall, the Samhain and winter solstice services, and we'll be talking about plans for Earth Spirit moving forward into 2024. And a few announcements that I was given in addition to those. Our partner church lunches are starting up, and for our soup and bread lunches, the first one is in 3 weeks on October 8th. The sign-up boards are in the lobby, so we're looking for volunteers to make some soup. And as we heard, our Barbara Haddon has turned 95, and I have been given the announcement that to honor her, not only is she the oldest member of the congregation, but she has also been the member of this congregation the longest. Those are all of the announcements. Our next hymn is number 1073. Oh, thank you. Excuse me. If John Kachuba could come forward.
Thank you. I'll make this brief. It's not in the order of service or any announcements, but if you have seen the St. John's community page on Facebook, you might be aware of what I'm going to talk about. Next Sunday, September 24th, we will have an exciting and really interesting event here, which is we're going to be hosting a Ukrainian klezmer band, if you know about it. Wow, okay. You haven't even heard them yet, but they're from Odessa. Komuna Lux is their name. They're they're 7 young guys. They were on tour in Europe for a while, and they are coming to us, they're actually in the United States now on tour in the East Coast. They will be here performing September 24th, next Sunday at 7 p.m. Doors will open at 6:30. I am looking, obviously, for volunteers to help set up the sanctuary here, also to help in Kroll Pfeiffer, because we're going to be giving the band, as well as any congregational members, a dinner. And Mary and I are actually, my wife Mary Newman and I are creating 3 or 4 Ukrainian entrees for the dinner, but we're looking for some sides and things like that from people. Anyway, I have this great yellow pad here that's got nothing on it right now except lines. So I will be out in Hanley and Kroll Pfeiffer after service. And if you're interested in volunteering to either help set up in here, help in Kroll Pfeiffer to set up or clean up, to act as a greeter, you can see Greg about that too, or me, just let me know, because this is going to be an all-hands event. And I want to say also it's a family event. If you got kids, bring kids, because this band is really high-octane, rocket fuel kind of band. They encourage people to get up off their seats and dance and scream and whatever. So if you have kids, bring them. It'll be a really fun event. So thank you. That's it.
Please rise and bow your spirit for our final hymn.
May the stars carry your sadness away. May the flowers fill your heart with beauty. May hope forever wipe away your tears. And above all, may silence make you strong.